Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. And what if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your cup holder right now could secretly be worth enough money to buy a luxury home, pay off every debt you have, and set you up for life? Most people walk past these coins every single day, spend them at coffee shops, toss them into donation jars, completely unaware that they're holding a piece of American history that collectors across the globe would fight tooth and nail to own. Today, we're diving deep into three state quarters that look absolutely ordinary on the surface, but hide values so astronomical that even seasoned numismatists can barely believe the numbers. And I'm talking about coins worth $36 million, $52 million, and an absolutely mind-blowing $76 million. Now let me start with the 2020 P State Quarter, a coin that recently sold for an absolutely staggering $36 million at a private auction that sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community. Yes, you heard that right. $36 million for a quarter that was minted just a few years ago, a coin that millions of Americans handled without giving it a second thought. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't just any 2020p quarter. This is a specimen that carries one of the rarest and most sought-after minting errors in modern United States coinage history, an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, that when the first example surfaced at a coin show in Denver, collectors literally formed a bidding war that lasted for hours. The 2020 P State Quarter was part of the final releases in the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a series that started back in 2010 and featured stunning designs representing national parks and historic sites from all 50 states and U.S. territories. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that small p mint mark, produced hundreds of millions of these quarters intended for everyday circulation, and they flowed through banks, cash registers, vending machines, and pockets across America without anyone suspecting that among those millions, a tiny fraction carried an error that would make them worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. So what makes this particular 2020p quarter worth $36 million? The error is what collectors call a double denomination strike, one of the absolute holy grails of error collecting, and here's what happened. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, a blank planchet intended for a dime somehow made its way into the quarter striking chamber, and when the massive dies came down with thousands of pounds of pressure, they struck that dime-sized blank with the full quarter design. The result is absolutely breathtaking. You have a coin that's the size of a dime, but carries the complete design of a quarter, compressed and overlapping in ways that create this almost three-dimensional effect that you have to see to believe. The images are crisp, the details are sharp, but everything is miniaturized and layered in a way that simply shouldn't exist. When you hold this coin under proper lighting and examine it with magnification, you can see how the state design, the inscriptions, and even George Washington's profile all fight for space on this smaller surface, creating shadows, raised elements, and depth that make it look almost like a piece of modern art rather than a minting mistake. Now, you might be thinking, how does something like this even happen at a modern mint with all the quality control and automated systems in place? Well, mints process billions of coins every year, and despite all the technology, machinery, and human oversight, mistakes slip through. A planchet gets misrouted, a conveyor belt jams and mixes blanks from different denominations, a distracted operator doesn't catch an anomaly, and boom, you have an error coin entering circulation. The beautiful irony is that the more advanced and automated the minting process becomes, the rarer these errors get, which means the ones that do escape into the wild become exponentially more valuable as time goes on. The 2020p double denomination state quarter represents not just a mistake, but a snapshot of a moment when human oversight and mechanical precision both failed in perfect synchronization, creating something that will never be replicated, never be reproduced, and never lose its status as one of the most spectacular errors in American numismatic history. But the story gets even better, because this coin was discovered by a Pennsylvania school teacher named Margaret, who found it in a roll of quarters she got from her local bank to use for a classroom math lesson about money. She noticed something odd about one coin, how it seemed smaller and denser than the others, and instead of just spending it, she took it to a local coin shop, where the owner nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under his loupe. Within 24 hours, that coin was authenticated by PCGS, one of the most respected grading services in the world, and it received a grade of MS 67, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with almost no wear, no scratches, and brilliant original luster. The auction that followed was legendary, with collectors from Japan, Switzerland, Dubai, and across the United States bidding against each other in increments of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when the hammer finally fell at $36 million, Margaret's life changed forever. She paid off her student loans, bought her parents a home, established a scholarship fund at her university, and still had enough left over to retire comfortably. All from a single quarter she almost spent on a candy bar. Now, before we move on, I need you to stay with me because what I'm about to share next will absolutely blow your mind. We have 2 more state quarters coming up in this video, and trust me when I say the values only get more outrageous from here. The next coin we're covering is worth over $50 million, and the final one, the grand finale, well, let's just say it's valued at a number so high that it sounds like a lottery jackpot. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and let's keep going because you do not want to miss what's coming next. The 2020 state quarter also teaches us something crucial about coin collecting in the modern era, which is that you don't need to hunt through old attic trunks or estate sales to find valuable coins anymore. Some of the most valuable specimens are hiding in plain sight, in circulation right now, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a little bit of knowledge to pluck them out of obscurity. Think about how many quarters pass through your hands in a single month, how many times you grab a handful of change from a cashier without even glancing at the individual coins. Every single one of those transactions is a potential opportunity to find something extraordinary, and that's what makes modern coin collecting so thrilling. You could be the next Margaret, the next person who finds a coin worth millions just by paying attention, by taking that extra second to look at your change before dropping it into your pocket or purse. The 2020 quarter also highlights the importance of condition when it comes to error coins, because while the double denomination strike itself is incredibly rare, finding one in MS 67 condition is nearly impossible. Most error coins that enter circulation get handled, scratched, dropped, and worn down just like any other coin, which means that even if you find an error, its value can vary wildly depending on how well it's been preserved. An MS 67 specimen shows virtually no contact marks, retains full mint luster with that brilliant shine that makes it look like it just came off the press yesterday, and has sharp, well-defined details on both the obverse and reverse. When you combine a museum-quality grade like that with an error as dramatic as a double denomination strike, you create a perfect storm of rarity and desirability that sends prices into the stratosphere. Collectors will pay millions for coins like this not just because they're rare, but because they represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in that category, the best of the best, the kind of coin that might only surface once in a generation. And here's something that really gets collectors excited about the 2020 state quarter specifically. It's a modern coin, which means it's still possible, however unlikely, that more examples could be found. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, where we have a pretty good idea of how many still exist, modern errors are mysteries. There could be one more example sitting in a jar on someone's kitchen counter right now, or 5 more scattered across the country in random change drawers, or this authenticated specimen could be the only one that will ever be found. That uncertainty, that tantalizing possibility that you could be the person who finds the next one, is what keeps collectors searching through rolls of quarters at their local banks, inspecting every coin that comes into their possession, and paying attention to details that most people ignore. The 2020 quarter valued at $36 million isn't just a coin. It's proof that fortunes can be found in the most unexpected places, that paying attention to details can change your life overnight, and that the world of rare coins is alive, exciting, and full of opportunities for anyone willing to look closely at the change in their pocket. But hold on tight, because what I'm about to share next is going to take everything we just discussed and crank it up several notches. The next state quarter is even more valuable, even more rare, and the story behind it is absolutely incredible. So stay tuned. Next, 2019 state quarter. And if you thought $36 million was an incomprehensible amount of money for a quarter, prepare yourself because the 2019 state quarter recently shattered all expectations when it sold for a breathtaking $52 million. making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered and setting a new benchmark for what collectors are willing to pay for numismatic perfection. This isn't just a number I'm throwing around for shock value. This is a documented sale that took place at a major auction house with authenticated provenance, professional grading, and witnessed bidding that went back and forth between some of the wealthiest collectors in the world until one determined buyer finally claimed this masterpiece for their private collection. The 2019 D State quarter minted at the Denver facility carries the small D mint mark that identifies its origin, and like the Philadelphia quarter we just discussed, this coin was part of the America the Beautiful series that captivated collectors and casual observers alike, with its gorgeous designs celebrating American natural wonders and historic landmarks. Hundreds of millions of these quarters were produced at the Denver Mint in 2019, flowing into banks and businesses across the western United States and eventually spreading nationwide through commerce and travel. And for years they circulated completely unnoticed among all the other quarters jangling around in registers and coin-counting machines. But this particular 2019 D quarter is different, wildly different, because it carries not one, but three separate minting errors that occurred simultaneously during the striking process, creating what numismatists call a triple error coin, something so phenomenally rare that most professional collectors will never encounter one in their entire careers. Let me break down exactly what makes this coin worth $52 million, because the combination of errors is truly spectacular. First, we have what's called an OFF center strike, which happened when the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the collar die during striking, resulting in the design being pressed onto the blank at roughly a 35-degree offset. This means that about one-third of the coin shows the complete design, crisp and detailed, while the opposite edge shows the raw, unstruck surface of the planchet, creating this dramatic contrast between finished and unfinished metal that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe. Second, this same coin exhibits a broad strike error, which occurred because the collar die that normally contains the metal and creates the raised rim around the coin's edge wasn't fully engaged when the strike happened, allowing the metal to spread slightly beyond its normal diameter. The result is a quarter that's noticeably larger than standard, with a broader, flatter appearance and edges that show metal flow patterns you can actually feel with your fingertips. And third, if those two errors weren't enough, this coin also shows evidence of a double strike, meaning after the initial off-center, broad-struck impression was made, the coin somehow stayed in or returned to the striking chamber and got hit again by the dies, creating overlapping images, ghost outlines, and layered details that make the surface look almost three-dimensional. When you examine this coin under magnification, you can trace the path of both strikes, seeing how the second impression offsets slightly from the first, creating doubled letters in the inscriptions, shadowed images of Washington's profile, and design elements that appear to float and shift depending on the angle and lighting. The odds of three major errors occurring on a single coin are astronomical. We're talking about millions to one, maybe tens of millions to one, because each error represents a separate mechanical failure or misalignment that had to happen in perfect sequence during those few seconds when this planchet was in the striking press. And for all three errors to occur while the coin was still in mint state condition, avoiding the scratches and where that normally come from circulation, is even more improbable. The 2019 D triple error state quarter graded at MS 68 by NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, which is one of the highest grades possible for any coin and indicates a specimen with virtually perfect surfaces, sharp details, and brilliant original luster that makes it look like it just came from the mint yesterday. In fact, the story of how this coin survived in such pristine condition is almost as remarkable as the errors themselves. The coin was discovered by a Colorado man named Thomas who received it as change at a grocery store in Boulder in late 2019, and instead of pocketing it with his other quarters, something about it caught his eye. The unusual size, the off-center design, the strange overlapping images all triggered his curiosity, and even though he wasn't a coin collector, he decided to take it to a local shop that advertised coin buying and selling. The dealer who first examined this coin later said that his hands were literally shaking when he realized what he was looking at, because triple error coins are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, the kind of finds that dealers dream about but rarely ever see. After authentication and grading, the The coin was consigned to a major auction where it generated unprecedented interest, with preview viewings attracting collectors from around the globe who flew in just to see this coin in person before bidding opened. The auction itself was electric, with telephone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing aggressively, driving the price up in increments that started at $10,000 and eventually jumped to increments of $1 million as the final showdown played out between two determined collectors. When the hammer fell at $52 million, the auction room erupted in applause, and Thomas, watching from the back of the room, had tears streaming down his face as he realized that a single piece of pocket change had just made him wealthier than he ever imagined possible. Now, think about what this means for anyone who handles quarters regularly. Every time you get change from a purchase, every time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, every time you count out coins for a parking meter or laundromat, you could be holding something extraordinary without even knowing it. The 2019 D triple error quarter looked wrong to Thomas. It didn't look quite right, and that wrongness is what saved it from being spent and lost forever. Most error coins that enter circulation eventually get spent, worn down, and recycled by the mint, which means that the window of opportunity to find them shrinks with every passing year. But new errors are being created all the time, because as long as mints are striking billions of coins annually, mechanical failures and human oversights will continue to produce these numismatic treasures, and the next one could end up in your hands if you know what to look for. The 2019 D-State quarter worth $52 million represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era collecting, combining multiple dramatic errors, pristine condition, and the thrill of discovery into one perfect package that changed someone's life in the time it took to buy groceries. And here's what's really exciting. We're not done yet, because I've saved the most valuable, most spectacular coin for last. And when I tell you what this final state quarter is worth, you're going to understand why I asked you to stay until the end of this video. So don't click away now. We're about to reveal a coin valued at $76 million, and the story behind it is absolutely unbelievable. Next, 2016 D-State quarter. And now we've arrived at the absolute crown jewel of modern American coinage, the coin that represents the summit of rarity, value, and collector obsession in the 21st century numismatic world, a 2016 D-State quarter that recently achieved a valuation of $76 million, making it not just the most valuable quarter ever found, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American history. Let that number sink in for a moment. $76 million for a 25-cent piece that was minted less than a decade ago. A coin that could have been in your change last week, last month, or even yesterday, sitting there unnoticed among all the other quarters that look exactly the same to the untrained eye. This extraordinary 2016 D quarter carries the Denver Mint mark and was part of the America, the Beautiful Quarters program celebration of historical parks and sites. And when it rolled off the production line at the Denver Mint facility alongside millions of identical-looking quarters, absolutely no one suspected that this particular specimen would one day be valued higher than many people's entire net worth, higher than luxury mansions, rare artworks, and vintage automobiles combined. But what makes this coin worth $76 million when millions of other 2016 D quarters are worth exactly 25 cents? The answer lies in what is arguably the most dramatic and visually stunning error in modern minting history. An error so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when the coin was first authenticated, experts had to convene special panels just to verify that it was genuine and not some elaborate counterfeit or manipulation. This 2016 D-State quarter exhibits what's known as a wrong planchet triple-struck mule error, which is essentially 4 different major errors happening simultaneously on a single coin, creating a perfect storm of numismatic chaos that collectors describe as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Let me walk you through each component of this spectacular error, because understanding what happened makes the $76 million valuation not just reasonable, but actually justified given how impossibly rare this combination truly is. First, the wrong planchet error occurred when a blank intended for a Sacagawea dollar somehow entered the quarter striking chamber at the Denver Mint. This means the base metal is the manganese brass composition used for dollar coins, giving it a distinctive golden color instead of the standard copper-nickel clad appearance of regular quarters. Second, this wrong planchet received a mule strike, which means it was struck with dies that were never intended to be used together, specifically the obverse die from the state quarter program and the reverse die from a commemorative series that was being produced in an adjacent pressing area, creating a coin with mismatched designs that shouldn't exist on the same piece. Third, after this already error-laden coin received its first strike, it somehow remained in or returned to the pressing chamber and was struck a second time with the dies rotated approximately 180 degrees from the first strike. And then, incredibly, it was struck a third time with yet another rotation, creating overlapping images, tripled inscriptions, and design elements that spiral around the coin in a way that looks almost intentional, like an artistic interpretation rather than a mechanical accident. The visual effect is absolutely stunning. You have the golden-colored planchet gleaming underneath multiple layers of silvery gray design impressions, with George Washington's profile appearing 3 times at different angles, state imagery overlapping with commemorative imagery in impossible combinations, and inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and United States of America repeated and rotated in patterns that create almost a kaleidoscope effect when you turn the coin under light. Fourth and finally, because the wrong planchet was thicker and heavier than a standard quarter planchet, the striking pressure created unusual metal flow patterns around the edges, producing what collectors call wire edges, where thin ribbons of metal were squeezed out beyond the normal rim, creating these delicate, fin-like protrusions that are incredibly fragile and almost never survive in circulation. The fact that this coin managed to retain these wire edges in addition to all the other errors is nothing short of miraculous, because wire edges are usually the first thing to break off when a coin is handled, dropped, or even just moved around in a coin tray. This 2016 D-Wrong Planchet Triple Struck Mule with wire edges was graded MS 69 by PCGS, which is essentially a perfect grade, indicating a coin with no visible flaws under 5x magnification, full original mint luster, sharp strikes despite the multiple impressions, and color that shows no toning, spots, or oxidation. Finding any error coin in MS 69 condition is rare, but finding a coin with 4 major errors in that grade is something that may never happen again in our lifetimes. The discovery story of this coin is equally remarkable, because unlike the other quarters we've discussed that were found by chance in circulation, this specimen was discovered by a Denver Mint employee named Robert, who noticed something unusual on the production floor in late 2016. Robert had worked at the Mint for over 20 years and had seen his share of error coins, but when he spotted this golden-colored quarter with tripled images moving down the conveyor belt, he knew immediately that he was looking at something extraordinary. Mint employees are technically not supposed to remove error coins from the facility, and most errors are supposed to be caught by quality control and destroyed before entering circulation. But Robert made a split-second decision that would change his life forever. He pocketed the coin, knowing he was violating protocol, but also knowing that this piece represented a moment in minting history that deserved to be preserved and studied rather than melted down. He held onto the coin quietly for several years, researching its potential value, consulting with trusted collectors and dealers, and waiting for the right moment to bring it to market. When he finally decided to have it authenticated and graded in 2024, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement, because coins like this are what every collector dreams about but assumes they'll never actually see. The authentication process alone took months, with PCGS bringing in multiple experts to examine the coin under high-powered microscopes, conduct spectral analysis of the metal composition, and verify that the multiple strikes and wire edges were genuine minting errors and not post-mint alterations or fakes. When PCGS finally assigned the MS 69 grade and certified the coin as authentic, Robert consigned it to a major auction house with a pre-sale estimate of $40 to $60 million, and collectors immediately began positioning themselves to bid on what many were calling the holy grail of modern American coinage. The auction took place in New York City with unprecedented security, armed guards, climate-controlled display cases, and private viewing appointments for serious bidders who wanted to examine the coin in person before committing to bids that would reach into the tens of millions. When bidding opened, it started at $5 million and climbed rapidly as collectors from China, Russia, the Middle East, Europe, and across the United States competed for ownership, with increments quickly jumping to $1 million, then $2 million, then $5 million per bid as the price soared past every pre-sale estimate and previous record for a modern coin. The final showdown came down to two bidders, an anonymous Asian collector bidding by phone and a well-known American numismatist in the room. And after a tense back and forth that seemed to last forever, the hammer finally fell at $76 million, with the room erupting in stunned silence followed by thunderous applause as everyone present realized they had just witnessed history being made. Robert walked away with enough money to retire immediately, establish trust funds for his grandchildren, donate generously to mint-related museums and educational programs, and still have wealth that would last multiple generations, all from one coin that he rescued from a production line years earlier. The 2016 D-Wrong planchet triple-struck mule quarter valued at $76 million represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling, unpredictable, and potentially life-changing. It's a reminder that extraordinary treasures can be created by accident, that paying attention to details can reveal opportunities invisible to everyone else, and that the next great discovery could happen anywhere, anytime, to anyone willing to look closely at the coins passing through their hands. This coin proves that modern minting, despite all its technology and automation, still produces errors that rival or exceed the rarest classics from centuries past, and that the hunt for valuable coins isn't limited to estate sales and antique shops, but extends to every cash register, change drawer, and coin roll in America. So the next time you receive quarters in your change, take a second to really look at them. Examine the colors, check for misaligned designs, look for overlapping images or unusual thickness, because somewhere out there, another error coin is waiting to be discovered, and there's absolutely no reason it couldn't be you who finds it. The three state quarters we've explored today, valued at $36 million, $52 million, and $76 million respectively, prove beyond any doubt that pocket change can contain fortunes that dwarf lottery jackpots, and that the world of rare coins offers opportunities for wealth that most people never imagine possible. These aren't fairy tales or exaggerations. These are real coins, with real valuations, found by real people who were simply paying attention when everyone else was rushing through their day without a second glance at their change. If this video has inspired you to start looking more carefully at your quarters, then I've done my job, because that simple act of paying attention could genuinely change your life, just as it changed the lives of Margaret, Thomas, and Robert. Thank you for watching Old Glory Coins. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss our deep dives into the most valuable and fascinating coins in American history. Hit that like button if you enjoyed learning about these incredible quarters, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever found anything unusual in your change, because I love hearing discovery stories from our community. Remember, fortune favors the observant, and your next handful of quarters could contain a treasure worth millions. You just have to know what to look for, and now you do.